In a small cabin, a baby's cries echoed, piercing through the howling wind. The old midwife looked at the tiny girl wrapped in a tattered cloth inside. "This child has no one," she muttered, staring at the lifeless body of a young woman who had died giving birth. Just as she was about to leave the crying baby to fate, a shadow appeared at the doorway. It was Mama Linda. "Give me the child," she said, her voice calm but firm. The midwife hesitated. "You already have a daughter, Mama Rose. Another mouth to feed." "I said, give me the child." The midwife obeyed, handing over the fragile baby. Mama Linda cradled her close, feeling the warmth of the tiny body against her own. She had no idea that this child would one day be the cause of her greatest regret. Mama Linda named the baby Sophia and took her home to her small cabin, where her own daughter, Bella, slept peacefully. Sophia grew up thinking Mama Linda was her real mother. She loved and obeyed her, even when Mama made her do all the chores while Bella played outside with friends. As they grew older, Sophia's beauty became undeniable. Her smooth, dark skin glowed like the moonlight. Her eyes sparkled like the stars, and her long hair flowed like a river. People in the village began to whisper, "Is she really Mama Linda's daughter? She looks nothing like her." Bella, who was once the center of attention, soon found herself overshadowed by Sophia's beauty. She noticed how the village boys looked at Sophia instead of her. Even the richest merchant's son, whom she secretly admired, couldn't take his eyes off Sophia. Bella's jealousy grew like a fire that couldn't be put out. One evening, as Sophia finished washing the clothes, she heard Mama Rose and Bella whispering in the kitchen. She hid behind the door, listening. "She's not even your real daughter," Bella hissed. Sophia's heart stopped. "She's adopted, isn't she?" Bella continued. "That's why she's so different from us. She doesn't belong here, Mama. She's just a burden." Mama sighed heavily. "You're right. She was never mine. I should have left her that night." Sophia's hands trembled as she clutched her chest. The only mother she had ever known had never wanted her. After that night, Mama Linda and Bella no longer hid their hatred. Sophia was no longer treated like a daughter, but like a servant. She cleaned, cooked, and ran errands while Bella did nothing. She ate leftovers while Bella feasted. Then one morning, Mama Linda called Sophia outside. "You're getting married," she said coldly. Sophia gasped. "Married to who?" "To Jamal," Mama Linda replied. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. Everyone in the village knew Jamal. He was a poor man, a struggling farmer who lived in a tiny broken-down cabin at the edge of the forest. He walked with a limp, and people laughed at him, calling him useless. Tears welled in Sophia's eyes. "Mama, please." Mama grabbed her arm roughly. "Don't call me Mama. I should have thrown you away years ago. You are nothing to me. Now you will marry Jamal and leave this house. Do you understand?" Bella smirked from the doorway, enjoying Sophia's pain. Sophia swallowed the lump in her throat. She had no choice. The next day, with no wedding dress, no celebration, and no family to bless her, Sophia was sent away as the wife of a man everyone mocked. But if only Mama Linda and Bella knew the truth about Jamal. The poor man they had thrown Sophia to was secretly a billionaire. Sophia walked behind Jamal as he led the way to his small cabin. Her heart pounded with fear and sorrow. She wanted to cry, to scream, to run away. But where would she go? She had no family, no one to fight for her. Her wedding had been nothing but an exchange. Mama Linda giving her away as if she were nothing. Bella laughing as she left. Jamal's home was exactly as the villagers described, small with a leaking roof, a creaky wooden bed, and a single stool. The air smelled of damp wood and earth. Sophia felt a lump rise in her throat. "This is your home now," Jamal said, his voice quiet but firm. Sophia remained silent, looking around in disbelief. From Mama Linda's house to this. Was this really her fate? Jamal watched her carefully. He wasn't blind to her pain, but he said nothing. Instead, he placed a mat on the floor and pointed at it. "You can sleep here." Sophia looked at him in surprise. She had feared the worst, that he would demand his rights as a husband on the first night, but he simply lay on the wooden bed, turning his back to her. As the night deepened, Sophia curled up on the mat, silent tears rolling down her face. The wind whistled through the cracks in the cabin, just as the loneliness whistled through her heart. Was this what her life had become? A wife to a man she didn't love, thrown away like a worthless thing. She cried until sleep finally took her. Leap finally. Morning came with whispers and laughter. As Sophia stepped outside, the village women gathered, pretending to fetch water, but only there to see her. "Look at the rich man's daughter, now the wife of a beggar," one woman sneered. "Does Jamal even have food to give her?" Another added, bursting into laughter. Sophia kept her head down, swallowing the shame. She had always been mocked in Mama Linda's house. But this was worse. Just then, Bella appeared, dressed in fine clothes, her skin glowing with expensive oils. She smirked. "Sister, how's married life?" she asked, her voice dripping with mockery. Sophia clenched her fists. Bella stepped closer and whispered, "You should be grateful. At least someone wanted you. No man of status would ever marry an abandoned child like you." Sophia felt the sting of her words, but she refused to let the tears fall in front of her. Without another word, she turned and walked away, leaving Bella laughing with the other women. Sophia spent hours by the river, staring at her reflection. "Maybe they're right," she whispered to herself. "Maybe I really am nothing." But deep in her heart, something told her that fate had more in store for her. Days turned into weeks. Sophia learned to live with Jamal, though she barely spoke to him. She cleaned the cabin, fetched water, and cooked. It was not an easy life, but it was better than being in Mama Linda's house. One afternoon, she was struggling to carry a heavy basket of potatoes from the market when she tripped. The potatoes spilled everywhere. The women around her laughed, shaking their heads. "Even as a poor man's wife, she is still useless," someone muttered. Sophia's face burned with embarrassment. She bent down to gather the potatoes. But before she could, a strong hand reached out and helped her. She looked up in shock. It was Jamal. He picked up the potatoes without a word and handed her the basket. Sophia expected him to mock her, just as everyone else did, but he didn't. Instead, he said softly, "You don't have to carry everything alone." Sophia felt something shift inside her. It was the first time in her life someone had offered her kindness without expecting anything in return. For the first time, she looked at Jamal properly. He was quiet, mysterious. His eyes held secrets she couldn't understand. After finishing her chores, Sophia sat outside watching the sunset. Her stomach rumbled loudly, betraying her hunger. Jamal, who had been sharpening a knife, heard the sound. He looked at her for a moment before standing up and walking inside. Moments later, he returned with a small wooden bowl. "Eat," he said, placing it beside her. Sophia stared at the food, boiled potato and olive oil. It was simple, but to her starving body it was a feast. She hesitated. "What about you?" Jamal shrugged. "I already ate." But Sophia noticed something. There was no second plate. She realized with a painful jolt that Jamal had given her the only food in the house. Tears pricked her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away before he could see. Silently, she picked up the bowl and ate, each bite filling not just her stomach, but also the emptiness inside her heart. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel completely alone. The hunger and stress soon caught up with Sophia. One day, as she tried to fetch water, her legs wobbled. The bucket slipped from her hands, and before she could take another step, the world around her spun. Then darkness. When she opened her eyes, she was lying on Jamal's wooden bed. Her head felt heavy, her body weak. A warm cloth was pressed against her forehead. Sophia turned her head slightly and saw Jamal sitting beside her, his face filled with worry. "You fainted," he said simply. Sophia blinked. I'm sorry," she whispered, trying to sit up. "Don't move," Jamal said, his voice firmer than before. "You're burning with fever." Sophia had never been cared for like this. Not by Mama Rose. Not by Bella. Jamal reached for a small clay bowl and gently lifted her head. "Drink," he said, bringing a spoonful of warm herbal mixture to her lips. She hesitated at first, but when she felt the warmth of the liquid slide down her throat, she sighed in relief. Jamal stayed by her side that night, placing cool cloths on her forehead and keeping the fire going. Even in her feverish haze, Sophia couldn't stop thinking. Why is he so kind? The man the villagers mocked. The man she had been forced to marry. Who was Jamal really? Sophia was still recovering when Bella came to visit. She walked into the small cabin, her nose wrinkled in disgust. "Oh, Sophia, is this really where you live?" She laughed. "I thought it was bad, but this." She shook her head dramatically. "Even the goats in our village live better than this." Sophia gripped the edge of the bed, her fingers trembling. She refused to cry. She had already cried enough. Bella sat down, placing a basket on the ground. "Mother sent food," she said, opening it. Inside were fresh vegetables, dried meat, and warm bread. Sophia's stomach twisted at the sight of real food. But before she could reach for it, Bella suddenly pulled the basket back. "Oh, I forgot," she said with a smirk. "This food isn't for you. It's for me. I just wanted you to see what you're missing." She picked up a piece of bread and took a slow, exaggerated bite. Sophia swallowed hard. The humiliation burned in her chest, but she remained silent. Just then, Jamal walked in. He saw the look on Sophia's face, then turned to Bella. "Leave," he said simply. Bella raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me." "You heard me," Jamal said, his voice like steel. "Take your food and leave." Bella scoffed. "How dare you speak to me like that? Do you know who I am?" Jamal stepped closer. "I know exactly who you are. A woman who finds joy in another's suffering. But not here. Not in my home." Bella opened her mouth to argue but stopped. For the first time, she really looked at Jamal. There was something about the way he stood, the calm authority in his voice. He was not just some poor, crippled farmer. Something about him felt powerful. Without another word, Bella grabbed her basket and stormed out. Sophia turned to Jamal, stunned. No one had ever defended her like that before. She stared at him, her heart pounding. "Who are you, Jamal?" she whispered. Jamal only smiled, but his eyes held secrets. Sophia couldn't shake the strange feeling Jamal left in her heart. He was unlike any man she had ever met. He barely spoke, yet his actions carried more meaning than words ever could. After Bella's cruel visit, Jamal left the cabin for hours. Sophia sat alone, her thoughts spiraling. Was this her fate to be mocked forever? Night fell, and just as Sophia was preparing to sleep, Jamal returned carrying a small bundle. He placed it on the floor beside her mat. She looked at him confused. "What is this?" she asked. Jamal simply nodded toward it. "Open it." Hesitantly, Sophia untied the cloth. Inside was warm bread, roasted meat, and a small wooden flask of fresh grape juice. Sophia gasped. Where did you get this?" she whispered. Jamal shrugged. "You haven't eaten properly in days." Sophia swallowed hard. The last time anyone had cared about her hunger was when she was a child, before Mama Linda's cruelty had begun. Tears filled her eyes as she picked up the bread. But before she could take a bite, she set it down and looked at Jamal. "Did you eat?" Jamal smirked slightly. "I'm not the one who fainted yesterday." Sophia felt her heart tighten. Slowly, she broke the bread in half and held one piece out to him. He hesitated. "Please," she whispered, "eat with me." For the first time since she had been forced into this marriage, Jamal sat beside her and ate. The silence between them was no longer heavy with pain. It was soft, understanding. And though Sophia still did not know who Jamal really was, for the first time she felt safe. That night, the cold wind howled through the cracks in the cabin. Sophia lay on her mat, shivering, pulling her thin wrapper tightly around her. Jamal, on the wooden bed, noticed her discomfort. Without a word, he got up, walked over to her, and placed a thick cloth over her body. Sophia's breath hitched. She turned slightly, looking up at him. "Jamal, you don't have to. You'll catch another fever," he said simply. Sophia clutched the cloth, feeling an unfamiliar warmth, not from the fabric, but from the kindness she wasn't used to receiving. She turned back, blinking rapidly to stop the tears from falling. She had spent years believing she was unwanted, unloved. But here was a man who owed her nothing, showing her more care than her own family ever had. Sophia slept deeply for the first time in years. And for the first time, she dreamed of something other than sadness. The next morning, Sophia went to the river to fetch water. As she walked, she heard whispers. "Did you hear? That poor farmer bought food yesterday. Expensive food. Where did he get the money? He must have stolen it." Sophia's heart pounded. She reached the market, and the rumors had spread even further. "I saw him with my own eyes," a woman said. He bought fresh bread and grape juice. How can I afford that? Maybe he is not as poor as we think. Another muttered. Sophia clenched her fists. The village had always mocked Jamal, but now they were suspicious. She hurried home, finding Jamal sharpening his knife as usual. Jamal, she said urgently, where did you get the food yesterday? He glanced at her, his face unreadable. Does it matter? He asked. Yes, it does, Sophia said, stepping closer. People are talking. They think you stole it. Jamal chuckled. Let them think what they want. Sophia frowned. Jamal, I need to know. Who are you? He looked at her for a long moment. Then he simply said, a man who doesn't want to see his wife suffer. Sophia's heart thudded. For the first time, she realized something. Jamal was hiding something. Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that Jamal was more than he seemed. His kindness, his quiet strength, the way he carried himself. It was unlike any poor farmer she had ever known. One evening, as she sat outside peeling cassava, she saw Jamal sitting by the doorway, lost in thought. The glow of the setting sun cast long shadows on his face, making him look distant, almost sad. She hesitated before speaking. Jamal, why do you live like this? Jamal's hand on his knife. Sophia swallowed. You could have married anyone, but you took a woman like me, someone thrown away like scraps, and you never complain, never raise your voice. Why? Jamal let out a slow breath. He looked at her, his dark eyes unreadable. Because I know what it means to be abandoned. Sophia's heart twisted. He turned away, staring into the distance. I was once a boy who had everything. Food, servants, a father who was one of the richest men in the land. But when I lost my ability to walk properly, I became worthless to them. My father sent me away, ashamed of me. Sophia's breath hitched. Jamal continued, his voice heavy with old wounds. I learned to survive on my own. I worked in places where no one cared for me, and I realized something. Poverty does not make a person less worthy, but the world will treat you like it does. Sophia felt tears sting her eyes. She had spent years being treated as less simply because she was adopted. She had believed that pain belonged only to her. But here was a man who had suffered just as she had, perhaps even more. For the first time, Sophia truly saw Jamal, not as the poor, crippled man the village mocked, but as someone who understood her in ways no one else ever had. Without thinking, she reached out and placed her hand over his. He looked at her, surprised. You are not worthless, she whispered. Something in Jamal's eyes softened. He didn't say anything, but his fingers tightened around hers. At that moment, they weren't two strangers forced into a marriage. They were two souls who had been cast aside, finally finding comfort in each other. The next morning, Sophia woke up to something she never expected. Laughter. She blinked, confused, before realizing it was Jamal. She stepped outside and found him playing with a small boy from the village. The child giggled as Jamal tossed a small wooden carving into the air and caught it with his good hand. Sophia had never seen Jamal smile before. Not like this. It was not the small, unreadable smirk he usually gave. This was pure joy. She watched, mesmerized. The man who had always seemed so distant, so closed off, was completely different in this moment. Then Jamal looked up and saw her watching. His smile faltered, and for a second he looked embarrassed. Sophia chuckled. I didn't know you could smile like that. Jamal rubbed the back of his neck. The boy likes stories. I was just telling him one. Sophia knelt beside the boy. What story? The child beamed. A story about a king who pretended to be poor, so he could find a wife who truly loved him. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. She turned to Jamal, but he only looked at her with that same unreadable expression. Something about the story made her heart race. Why did it feel so familiar? Later that evening, as Sophia was returning from the river, she saw a familiar figure waiting outside the cabin. Bella! Her stepsister stood there, arms crossed, eyes gleaming with mischief. I see you're still here. Bella sneered. I thought by now you'd have run away from this miserable life. Sophia sighed, too tired to argue. What do you want, Bella? Bella smirked and held up a shiny silver necklace. Sophia's heart stopped. That necklace belonged to her. It was the only thing she had from her real parents. Where did you get that? She asked, stepping closer. Bella dangled it in front of her. "Mother found it in your things and gave it to me," she said. "You don't need something this beautiful since you'll never be anything more than a poor farmer's wife." Sophia's hands trembled. "That's mine," she whispered. Bella laughed. "Not anymore." Then, before Sophia could react, Bella threw the necklace into the muddy ground and stepped on it with her heel, grinding it into the dirt. Sophia gasped. She rushed forward, pushing Bella aside, and picked up the necklace. It was bent, covered in mud, ruined. Tears filled her eyes. Bella clapped her hands. "Oh, look! Poor pathetic Sophia crying over a useless piece of metal." Sophia clenched the necklace to her chest, her entire body shaking. Jamal suddenly appeared in the doorway. He saw the scene and his jaw tightened. "Get out," he said, his voice dangerously low. Bella smirked. "Oh, and what are you going to do about it, cripple?" Jamal took a step forward. There was something in his stance, something powerful, something commanding. Bella's smirk faltered. For the first time, she looked afraid. She scoffed, but quickly turned and walked away. Sophia stood there clutching the ruined necklace, her heart breaking. Jamal gently took it from her hands. Without a word, he walked inside. Moments later, he returned with a small soft cloth and a knife. He sat down and began carefully straightening the bent metal, cleaning away the dirt. Sophia watched, unable to speak. Minutes passed. Then Jamal handed it back to her. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers again. Sophia looked at him, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Thank you," she whispered. Jamal didn't say anything, but in that moment, Sophia knew this man, the one she had been forced to marry, was the only person who had ever truly cared for her, and her heart would never be the same again. That night, Sophia sat by the small oil lamp. Turning the necklace over in her hands, she traced the bent edges, the small scratches Bella had left behind. It wasn't the same anymore, but it was still hers. A single tear slipped down her cheek. She thought about her life, how Mama Linda had raised her like a servant, how Bella had stolen everything from her, and how she had been thrown away like trash. She covered her mouth, trying to muffle the sob that threatened to escape. But Jamal heard. She felt his presence before she saw him. He moved quietly, sitting down beside her. He didn't speak. He didn't ask questions. Instead, he placed a wooden cup filled with warm tea beside her. Sophia stared at it, her hand shaking. No one had ever comforted her like this before. No one had ever noticed her pain. She took the cup, her fingers brushing against his. His warmth was steady, solid. For the first time in her life, she wasn't completely alone. She looked at Jamal, her voice barely a whisper. "Do you think I will ever be happy?" Jamal's gaze was unreadable. But then he did something she never expected. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You will," he said softly, "because you are stronger than you think." Sophia's heart ached. She wanted to believe him. She really did. The next morning, as Sophia was washing clothes by the river, she heard laughter. The sound sent chills down her spine. She turned and there stood Mama Linda. Her heart clenched. Mama Linda was dressed in fine flowing wrappers, her arms heavy with gold bracelets. She looked at Sophia with the same disgust she had always carried in her eyes. "I see marriage hasn't changed you." Mama Linda sneered. Still a filthy, pitiful girl. Sophia clenched her fists. She should have ignored her. She should have walked away. But Mama Linda stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You think you are suffering now," she whispered. "This is only the beginning. No one will ever love a girl like you. Not truly." Sophia's breath caught in her throat. Mama Linda smiled, a cruel, wicked smile. Then she turned and walked away, leaving Sophia standing there trembling. She didn't realize Jamal had been watching from a distance. She didn't see the way his hands clenched into fists or the storm that darkened his eyes. But that night, when Sophia lay on the small mat, curled into herself, she felt Jamal drape a thin blanket over her shoulders. And when she turned to look at him, he simply said, she was wrong. Sophia didn't respond. But for the first time, Mama Linda's words didn't feel quite as heavy because Jamal's presence made them easier to bear. Days passed and something changed between Sophia and Jamal. He no longer felt like a stranger. As they sat outside watching the stars, Sophia found herself asking, "Do you ever wish things were different?" Jamal turned to her, his face unreadable. What do you mean? She hesitated. Do you ever wish you had married someone else? Someone who deserved you? Jamal's jaw tightened. Don't say that. Sophia looked away. It's true. I was thrown away, given to you like I was nothing. Jamal reached for her hand. His touch was warm, firm. You are not nothing, he said quietly. You are everything. Sophia's breath hitched. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. She looked at Jamal, truly looked at him, and for the first time she wondered. Who was this man she had married? Why did he seem so different, so important? Something about him didn't add up, and Sophia was determined to find out the truth. That night, Sophia couldn't sleep. Jamal's words played over and over in her head. You are not nothing. You are everything. Why had he said that? Why did he look at her like she was worth something when her whole life had been proof that she wasn't? She turned on the thin mat, staring at the wooden roof of their small cabin. The night air was thick with the scent of burning wood and distant rain. She had never questioned Jamal before. He was a poor man, a simple man. That's what she had been told. But there was something in the way he carried himself, something in the quiet strength of his words. It unsettled her. And for the first time, she wondered who really was the man she had been forced to marry. The next morning, as Sophia swept the front yard, a shadow fell over her. She looked up and her heart nearly stopped. Bella! She was dressed in the finest wrapper, her head tied with bright beads, her fingers heavy with golden rings. Sophia felt her throat tighten. Bella smiled, but it wasn't kind. Look at you, she said, eyes glinting with amusement. Living like a beggar. Sophia clenched the broom in her hands. Bella stepped closer, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. You should have known, Sophia. You were never one of us. Mama, and I only kept you because it made us look good. Sophia's chest ached. She had always known Bella, and Mama Linda didn't love her. But hearing it spoken so plainly, like she was nothing more than a discarded object, felt like a knife in her heart. Bella smirked. Did you really think you deserved a good life? A girl like you? An orphan? A nobody? Sophia swallowed the pain rising in her throat. She would not cry. Not this time. Instead, she straightened her back, meeting Bella's gaze with quiet defiance. I may be poor, she said softly, but I am not broken. For the first time, Bella's smirk faltered. Something about Sophia had changed, and Bella didn't like it. She turned sharply, her golden bracelets clinking as she walked away. Sophia stood there, staring after her, her heart pounding. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like a helpless girl begging for love. She felt like something more, and she had a feeling deep in her bones that Jamal had something to do with that. Later that evening, Sophia sat outside watching Jamal as he mended a basket. She hesitated before speaking. Why did you marry me? Jamal paused, looking up. His eyes searched hers. Because I wanted to, he said simply. Sophia frowned. But why? I was forced on you. You could have refused. Jamal sighed, setting the basket aside. You think you were the only one who was forced? He asked quietly. Sophia's breath caught. What do you mean? Jamal looked away for a moment as if choosing his words carefully. Then he turned back to her, his face unreadable. Things are not always what they seem, Sophia, he said. She felt a chill crawl up her spine. Jamal was hiding something, and whatever it was, it would change everything. Sophia sat frozen, Jamal's words echoing in her mind. You think you were the only one who was forced. What did he mean? She had always believed she was the one thrown away, the one abandoned. But Jamal's voice held something deeper, something she couldn't quite grasp. She watched him as he returned to his work, his fingers steady as they weaved the basket. Jamal, she whispered, her throat dry. Who are you? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he sighed, setting the basket aside. Then he met her gaze. Do you really want to know? Sophia swallowed hard. Yes. Jamal stood up, brushing the dust from his clothes. Follow me. Sophia followed Jamal through the narrow winding paths of the village. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows on the ground. She didn't ask where they were going. Something in Jamal's posture told her she was about to find out everything. After what felt like an eternity, they stopped in front of a massive iron gate. Sophia's heart pounded. This wasn't a poor man's home. This was a mansion. She turned to Jamal, her lips trembling. "What is this?" Jamal stepped forward, pushing the gate open. Inside was a grand compound filled with towering trees, golden lanterns, and a house so large it looked like something from a dream. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. She had spent her whole life being told she wasn't worthy of love, that she was destined for nothing. Yet, the man she had been forced to marry was standing before a palace. Jamal turned to her, his expression unreadable. "This is my home," he said softly. Sophia took a shaky step forward. "But you're poor." Jamal's lips curled into a small smile. "No, Sophia. I only wanted people to think I was poor." She felt dizzy. Nothing made sense anymore. Jamal walked ahead, leading her toward the grand house. Sophia followed, her heart racing. As they stepped inside, she stared at the fine woven rugs, the large carved chairs, the golden ornaments decorating the walls. She turned to Jamal, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why?" Jamal sighed, looking away. "Because I needed to know who truly loved me. I was tired of women who only saw my wealth." Sophia's heart ached. So this whole time he had been testing her. She thought back to the suffering, the hunger, the pain. "You let me believe we were struggling," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You let me cry myself to sleep, thinking I had lost everything." Jamal stepped closer. "I didn't do it to hurt you, Sophia." "But you did," she said, her eyes welling up. "You did." Jamal reached for her hands, but she stepped back. She had spent her whole life being lied to. She didn't know if she could take another betrayal. Jamal's eyes softened. "Sophia, I love you." She let out a broken laugh, wiping her tears. "Then why didn't you tell me sooner?" Jamal took a deep breath. "Because I was afraid." Sophia closed her eyes. She didn't know what hurt more, the truth itself, or the fact that he had waited so long to tell her. She turned away, her heart heavy. "I need time," she whispered. And for the first time since they had been married, she walked away from Jamal. Sophia walked away from Jamal, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she had to leave. Her feet carried her down the grand steps of the mansion, past the beautiful gardens, past the iron gates that had once held so many secrets. How could Jamal do this to her? She had suffered, cried, starved, believing they had nothing, believing she was worthless, and all along he had everything. Tears streamed down her face as she walked aimlessly down the empty road. She thought of Mama Linda and Bella. She thought of the day they had thrown her away like she was nothing. She thought of the nights she had cried herself to sleep in the tiny leaking cabin, thinking she was doomed to suffer for the rest of her life. And now, just when she thought she had found peace, another lie had shattered her world. Sophia didn't realize where she was going until she reached Mama Linda's house, the place she had once called home. Her hands trembled as she knocked on the door. A moment later, it swung open. Bella stood there dressed in another fine wrapper, her hair shining with oil. At first, her face twisted with confusion. Then, when she saw the tears in Sophia's eyes, a slow, cruel smile spread across her lips. "Look who came crawling back," she sneered. Sophia swallowed hard. "I just needed—" Bella laughed, crossing her arms. "Needed what?" "A reminder that you don't belong here." Sophia clenched her fists. "I never belonged here, did I?" Bella's smile widened. "You're finally learning." Sophia turned to leave, but Bella's next words made her freeze. "I heard about your husband," she said, her voice mocking. "The poor little you were forced to marry." Anger burned in Sophia's chest. Bella didn't know the truth. She didn't know Jamal was richer than she could ever imagine. For a moment, Sophia wanted to tell her, to wipe that smug look off her face. But then she realized Bella didn't deserve to know. "Not yet." Sophia straightened her back, wiping her tears. "You're right," she said, her voice steady. "I was forced to marry him." Bella's smirk deepened. "But do you know what, Bella?" Sophia continued, stepping closer. "For the first time in my life, I was loved." Bella's smile faded. "And I would rather be with a poor man who loves me," Sophia whispered, "than stay in a house full of people who never did." Bella's face darkened with anger. Sophia turned and walked away, her heart still aching, but her spirit stronger than ever. The night was cool when Sophia finally returned to the mansion. She didn't want to see Jamal. She didn't know what to say to him. But as she stepped through the gates, she found him waiting for her. He stood there in the dim light, his face filled with worry. "Sophia," he breathed, stepping closer. "Where did you go?" She looked away. "I needed to think." Jamal hesitated. "And what did you decide?" Sophia's throat tightened. "I don't know." Jamal sighed, rubbing his forehead. "I never meant to hurt you, Sophia. I only wanted to find someone who loved me for who I was, not for my wealth." Sophia shook her head. "And what about me, Jamal? Did you ever think about what I was going through? Did you ever wonder how it felt to believe I was stuck in a life of suffering when all along it was just a test?" Pain flashed in Jamal's eyes. "I did, Sophia. And every time I saw you struggle, I wanted to tell you the truth. But I was afraid you would hate me." Sophia let out a shaky breath. She did hate him, but she also loved him. She had seen his kindness, his patience, the way he treated her even when he had nothing to gain. But could she ever forgive him? Jamal took her hands gently. "Sophia, please," he whispered. "Don't leave me." Tears welled up in her eyes. Could she walk away from the one person who had ever truly loved her? Or was there still hope for them? The news spread like wildfire. Mama Linda was sitting outside her home peeling cassava when she overheard two women whispering nearby. "Did you hear?" one of them said, leaning in closer to the other. "Jamal isn't poor." Mama Linda's hands froze. "What do you mean?" the other woman asked, her voice full of disbelief. The first woman scoffed. "Ah, you haven't heard that Jamal, Sophia's husband, is actually a billionaire. He has mansions, lands, businesses, everything." Mama Linda's heart stopped. A billionaire. Her head spun as their words sank in. All this time, she had mocked Sophia, laughed at her suffering, and called her useless. All this time, she had praised Bella for not being chosen. And now she found out that the very man they had thrown Sophia to was richer than all of them combined. Mama Linda's blood boiled. Why wasn't it Bella who had married him? Why had it been Sophia, the unwanted one? She clenched her fists, her breathing ragged. No, this couldn't happen. She would not sit back and let Sophia enjoy a life meant for Bella. Something had to be done. That night, Mama Rose gathered some villagers, those who hated seeing others rise above them. They sat in a dark corner of her house, their voices hushed but filled with malice. "We cannot allow that girl to live in wealth while we suffer," Mama Linda hissed. One of the men, a notorious troublemaker, smirked. "What do you have in mind?" Mama Linda's eyes gleamed with wickedness. "We will go to that mansion. We will make her pay. We will show her that she does not belong there." The villagers nodded in agreement, their minds poisoned with envy. Tomorrow they would strike. The next evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, a group of villagers marched toward Jamal's mansion. They carried sticks and stones, their eyes filled with greed and anger. Mama Linda led them, her face twisted with rage. As they reached the grand gates, she raised her voice. "Sophia," she screamed, "come out." Inside the mansion, Sophia and Jamal were having dinner when the shouts reached them. Sophia's heart clenched. She recognized that voice. "Mama Linda." Jamal's expression darkened as he stood. "Stay here," he told Sophia. But Sophia shook her head. "No, I need to face her." Together, they walked outside. When Mama Linda saw Sophia dressed in fine clothes, her skin glowing with happiness, she nearly burst with rage. "You ungrateful wretch," she spat. "You stole what should have been Bella's." Sophia flinched, but Jamal stepped forward, his presence commanding. "Enough!" he thundered. The villagers hesitated. This was not the weak man they had mocked. This was a man of power. Jamal's eyes burned with fury. "How dare you come to my home and threaten my wife?" Mama sneered. "She does not belong here." Jamal stepped closer, his voice cold. "Sophia belongs by my side, and if you or anyone else ever try to hurt her again, you will regret it." The villagers shifted uncomfortably. The plan had failed. Mama Linda's face turned pale as she realized the truth. She had no power here. Jamal was too strong, too rich, too well-respected. She had lost. As the villagers slinked away in shame, Sophia turned to Jamal, her eyes filled with tears. "You defended me," she whispered. Jamal cupped her face gently. "I will always defend you, Sophia." Her heart swelled with love. For the first time in her life, she was not alone. She was safe. Jamal took her hands in his gaze steady. No one will ever hurt you again. Sophia broke down, sobbing into his chest. 4 years, she had been unwanted. 4 years, she had been tossed aside like she was nothing. But not anymore. Now she had a home. Now she had love. Now she had Jamal. And nothing, not even Mama Linda's hatred, could take that away from her. That night, Mama Linda lay on her bed staring at the ceiling. Her body felt weak, her heart heavy. She had lost. All her plans to bring Sophia down had failed. And now instead of Bella living in a mansion, dressed in fine clothes, eating expensive meals, it was Sophia, the girl she had despised, the girl she had always treated as a burden. Tears slipped down her wrinkled cheeks. Had she made a mistake? No. She refused to believe it. Bella should have been the one to marry Jamal. Bella was her real daughter. But deep inside, a painful truth gnawed at her. It wasn't Sophia's fault. It had never been. Sophia had done nothing wrong. She had only wanted love, a family, and a place to belong. And Mama Linda had taken all of that away from her. She turned to Bella, who was sitting at the corner, her arms crossed, her face sour. "This is your fault, Mama," Bella muttered. "If you hadn't forced Sophia to marry that man, I could have had a chance." Mama Linda's heart clenched. For the first time, she saw the greed in her own daughter's eyes. She had raised Bella to be just like her, bitter and selfish. And now she was reaping the consequences. But it was too late. Jamal had chosen Sophia, and nothing could change that. A few days later, a letter arrived at Mama Linda's home. It was from Sophia. With shaky hands, she opened it and began to read. "Mama Linda, I know you never loved me. I know you never wanted me. But despite everything, I do not hate you. I have a new life now, a life full of love and happiness. Jamal is a good man. He takes care of me. He treats me well. I lack nothing. I wish things had been different between us. I wish you had seen me as your daughter, but I will not live in the past. I have chosen to be happy. I forgive you, Sophia." Mama Linda's hands trembled as she finished reading. Tears welled in her eyes. Sophia had forgiven her after all the pain she had caused. She clutched the letter to her chest, her body shaking. She didn't deserve forgiveness. She had failed as a mother, but Sophia, the girl she had cast aside, had a heart big enough to forgive her, and that realization shattered her completely. Sophia stood by the window of her new home, watching the sunrise. Beside her, Jamal wrapped his arms around her waist, pressing a soft kiss to her temple. "You're thinking about her, aren't you?" he asked gently. Sophia nodded. "I sent her a letter," she whispered. "I don't know if she will ever accept me as a daughter, but I wanted her to know I hold no grudge." Jamal turned her around to face him, his eyes full of admiration. "You have the purest heart, Sophia." She smiled, resting her head against his chest. 4 years, she had longed for love. Now she had it, not from Mama Rose, but from Jamal. And that was enough. Months passed. Jamal and Sophia's love grew stronger. They traveled together, explored new places, and built a beautiful life side by side. Sophia was no longer the girl who was neglected and unwanted. She was now a woman who was loved beyond measure. One evening, as they walked hand in hand through their garden, Jamal stopped and turned to her. "I have one last surprise for you." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Another surprise? What is it?" Jamal smiled and knelt down, pulling out a small box. Sophia gasped. He opened it to reveal a sparkling diamond ring. "We had a forced marriage," Jamal said, his voice full of emotion. "But I want to marry you properly. Will you marry me again? This time by choice." Tears spilled down Sophia's cheeks. "Yes," she whispered. Jamal slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms. This was love. This was happiness. This was the life she had always dreamed of. And finally she had it.